Hey there, Chris Kroll here, editor of Craft Brewing Business, and today I'm joined by Colin Jones, co-founder of WeldWerks Brewing in Greeley, Colorado. Hey there, Colin.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. And I thought it would be interesting to chat with you today because I hear that WeldWerks is actually kind of thriving. I hope that's the right word right now, in this weird time we're in, because of systems that you already basically had in place because of how the brewery was already structured. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that. What led into the pandemic right now? Why is it helping to work to keep things going for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just to preface the conversation, we're doing good for now. We definitely enjoy these kind of conversations, so we can share everything that we know. We're happy to help anybody out and do whatever we can, but this is not the time to go inward with any sort of issues that you're struggling with or your successes. This is the time to share. This is the time to communicate. This is the time to join hands and find ways forward. So that's hoping. I'm hoping that's the big takeaway from this conversation, and I'm hoping to learn a lot from you as well. But yeah, I think in general we are in a good position simply because we are in Greeley. That had multiple effects on the origination of our brewery the first couple of years. All the defensive positions and strategies that we had to take just to kind of stand out in a obviously super hot Colorado market next to the greatest brewers in the world. When we still struggle with this, getting anybody to come up to Greeley, and so taproom was never a gold mine for us. It was always, and it still is, something that we have to work very, very hard to get people to come out and enjoy. We definitely have our fans, and we're super appreciative of them, but it's nothing like a Rhino vibe or anything like that. It's pretty chill and but still very cool, and provides us a little bit of a downtime or a calmness to really create great experiences for the customers coming in, and so that's what we focus on. But all that said, yeah, we had to, shortly after we opened the doors, we had to start slinging kegs out and about and just starting to make our name. And so distribution was always a primary focus for us since day one. Obviously, back then it was all keg, but
What is that ratio, heading into that? And then are you looking to now maybe even shift things even more? I mean, I guess just what's your response now that we're in this era that we're in?
Yeah, sure. Well, pre-COVID, we were about an 80-20 split. So we were 80% can, 20% keg. We kind of saw the writing on the wall where this was all going, not with any sort of, 2 months ago, we saw this coming, not by any means. But we were able to pivot pretty quickly. And before we were being forced to shut down or make all these moves, we had already kind of pivoted to, had already pivoted to 100% can about a week before everything started shutting down. And so we had a little bit of a lead start on that. And thankfully, that industry, the restaurant bar industry, is starting to come back a little bit. A lot of them are still buying cans for the to-go. We're very thankful for Colorado and Polis and formerly Hick. We just have a really great business climate of beer here in Colorado. And obviously we have friends everywhere all over the world. And a lot of breweries are struggling in states that don't have such generous laws and freedoms around operating a brewery. So.
Yeah, totally. And that's something we try to harp on and highlight as much as we can on our site, where states are hopefully trying to change some of that to accommodate, these small businesses that are trying to adjust on the fly. Do you have advice for some of these breweries that are now forced to kind of pivot, that were built as taproom breweries, that now are looking for different avenues to expand, new sales channels?
Yeah, and everybody's situation is obviously unique, all the way down to the states that they're located in. I've always been a big proponent of just making sure you have a very solid structure, that you have very good communication systems in place, that you have a very strong team in place. If you're trying to pivot and you're one of 3 employees total, it's going to be really, really tough. So just like this is a manufacturing industry, it's there's a retail side of it, there's that taproom experience side of it, but for a big portion of strategy, we're dealing with machinery and equipment and machine manufacturing process. And so scale and efficiency plays in big time with that. And so we were lucky enough to have our own canning line already, an entire packaging team. Everybody's just hired. We never outsourced anything or anything. We went through all the hard work of spinning up all of our own processes ourselves, all the way into fully self-distributing 100% of every bit of liquid that we do, with say for Tabor and some occasional out-of-state drops along those lines. But I think all that said, if you distill that down, I think the primary thing that people need to really focus on and or be cognizant of is self, your own state of mind, your own rest periods, your stress levels, your depressions, your anxieties. It's really hard to execute something successfully if you're sideways. It's kind of like the airplane thing. Like, you're going down, you got to put the mask on yourself before you put on the kid. Like, you got to take care of yourself first and foremost, and allow yourself that space to put your eyes up into the sky and figure out what next. As much as you can, just get into that packaged format. Back when we were slinging crowlers out to liquor stores, and we wanted to see who could turn a fresh product. And from a consumer standpoint, it's not the most ideal packaging format by any means, but being able to distribute even a crowler can really save some people's bacon. It's just what are you successful at? Where's your entrance points? If it's restaurants and bars, it's going to be really hard to do. Obviously, off-prem is doing a lot better than on-prem. And so if you can find a way, even if it's crowlers, to get into those shelves, obviously everybody's thinking the same thing. And so it's a crowded deal. A lot of times it comes down to relationships as well. So in a crowded hot liquor store, maybe you can strike up a good relationship and find some wiggle room in, and educate their staff on your beer, keep it in the forefront of people's mind. And I think that's very important. You have to do more than just be on the shelf or to coast on the weight of your name or anything like that. You still gotta hustle for it. And I think you'll see big benefits if you do that.
One of the smaller channels that at least getting promoted a lot more is various online sales outlets or services. And you mentioned Tabor. I never actually said it out loud, so I didn't really know how to say it till you said it. I'm just curious how your experience has been with that, and what does it really add to your revenue?
Yeah, for us, it's a way to, especially in times like this, when a release is appropriate. That's the main thing. We're not messing with release formats, but depending on what it is that we're releasing and the quantities of and everything else, it's going to make sense for on-site only, no proxies, or on-site with proxies, or on-site with proxies with a little bit of a Tabor element in there. And so we look at each release on its own and just try to figure out what is the best way to go about this to get it in most people's hands. That's the most important piece for us, especially again in times like this where nobody can really travel, nobody can really get out of their own cities or states. So we can pull the lever with Tabor in a very simplistic way, and they've been great to work with since day one. They just make it easy. And so, there's a lot of guarantees in terms of keeping cold and freshness and turn and all that sort of good stuff. And they've abided by all of that 100% by us. But we also do other out-of-state drops as well. And so we have very key partnerships in Wisconsin and the East Coast and Asheville, North Carolina area, and Minneapolis and everywhere else that, again, if we get into a situation where we have some extra capacity that we can send out someplace, we absolutely will. That well's pretty dried up by and large, thankfully, but that's another outlet for struggling brewers as well. Leverage these key distributor relationships, understand that there's a lot of people, especially in smaller format or single pallet kind of shipments, that there's kind of a cachet to that, and most of those guys so long as the beer quality is there, most of those guys can really sling that beer pretty quickly in other states, and they do a really good job of taking care of the product. Yeah, you take a little bit of a ding on margin, but again, we're talking about relevancy, and we're talking about name recognition, and we're talking about just staying at the forefront of the customer mind.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And am I correct that during the last couple of months, not only has WeldWerks not had to lay off any of its employees, but you were somewhat hiring? And if that's true, what were those spots? Where were you looking to add help at?
Yeah, mostly taproom. We thankfully we never let anybody go. We did not have to reduce hours, and we just try to treat people the best that we can. Surely the taproom people were looking for hours, and we were just doing everything that we could to keep those filled. Oddball projects around the brewery or the property or whatever. But we did really well with that. We shifted some responsibilities as we pivoted from that 20% of keg output. We pushed that all into packaging. My packaging team is just going bonkers right now. They need so many hands, it's not even funny. So we've pivoted some taproom positions into the production side, just to buoy that team. And that's helped out quite a bit, but we just did a round of hires for the taproom because we have kind of a quasi reopening where we have tents out in the parking lot with some AstroTurf, and we're doing some seated service Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and working to expand that when the time is right. But so we just kind of backfilled the taproom team because of those people that moved on and out to the different areas of the brewery. Pushed some people from taproom into sales as well. So two moves from taproom into sales and two into production from taproom. And so when we reopened, we're kind of going like, holy crap, like we're a skeleton crew and we're trying to do this service, and kind of found ourselves a little short. And so we had to very quickly pivot and go to that prospect pipeline of potential staff and bring some people in pretty quick, which we just did this week. So
you mentioned there moving people into the sales role. I wanted to throw this in there. I've chatted with a couple other breweries that have felt that they weren't sure the value of the sales position and growing their wholesale market share. And I'm curious how you feel about that, because obviously this is a thriving channel for you. How do you feel about the sales position? And I guess what's key about the people you employ at the brewery to manage and grow those channels for you?
Just being frank on where we started with sales as well. I mean, it was just me throwing some kegs in the back of my Jeep and bottoming out the wheels on the back trunk and going over little bumps and things like that, and just huffing it, man. Just going up and down Main Street, knocking on doors, and just trying to spread the word and all that sort of good stuff. Pivot to now where we've got a whole fleet and a good crew of almost 10 people operating in sales, distributing. I don't know if you're familiar with Colorado, but all the way from Fort Collins down to Colorado Springs and everywhere in between. We had a lot of years of error and missteps that I am so thankful that, and we still screw up all the time, but the team is solid, the strategy is sound, the accounts of those relationships have been cold for several years now and are very, very deep. And that's again why we kind of expanded that sales team. We didn't really necessarily pick up more accounts, but we kind of went into this year with a defensive mindset. We just felt something was going to happen this year, whether if it was, you can look at the macro beer trend and just the number of breweries and things along those lines, and seltzer and all this sort of stuff. And, how many years can we really kind of keep this going with the economy and the market? Like, it just felt like something was going to happen this year. And so we just, we took a very defensive position. Now for us, that meant investments in particularly marketing and customer service and our sales team. So again, we added 2 people into the team, but mostly to just make sure that we are continuing to develop and keep those relationships intact, instead of being so overburdened and so overworked that we're just high-fiving people as we're in and out of a place, dropping off a keg or a case or whatever. Really working with our accounts on placement and turns, and education and again, just personal relationship. And thankfully, all that was in motion before March. So
Wow.
we kind of kicked that off in January, including in investments in marketing, and kind of had a couple months under our belt of working through the additions before COVID even hit. So, and I would say, just back to your original question too, I think it's very, very dependent on if we're talking about self-distribution or truly working with a distributor. Again, we know several distributors, both within the state and out of state, that are highly, highly reputable portfolios and shops, and just good people with good intentions and good spirits, and very knowledgeable with key relationships. So there are people out there that can help you. I think at the end of the day, you got to make that own equation in your head in terms of what is that efficiency of scale from a machinery and equipment and manufacturing standpoint, to bodies, to quality, to packaging format, and then how much do you really need to sell outside to maintain what's that sweet spot that you want to hit. I always had intentions of trying to max out our 15-barrel brew system, which we still use since day one. The goal was just always to find that key efficiency point in that system without killing staff. So a big strategy for us, and we're not doing great at it right now. I'm sorry, packaging team. But a key strategy for us is just making sure that we're setting people up for success, that they have moments of rest, that their lives are not overstressed, that they got all the tools and equipment, the process, the procedure, that they can just do their jobs without going bonkers. So we really focus on that, and that keeps our brew schedules down. It keeps our volume down. It keeps it at appropriate level. How does that intertwine with the efficiency of ingredients and brews and all that sort of good stuff? What price points are you selling your draft at, your cans at, and all that sort of good stuff? But everybody's got to kind of find that what's that perfect balance point for them. If you were 100% taproom only play, you have a long road ahead of you. It's going to be very, very difficult. But just to I guess take a step and just see how the market reacts. Again, develop those key relationships, just see what it can do for you. I think would be beneficial.
What were some of those marketing initiatives that you were focused on then this year as a part of that defensive position? I'm just kind of curious what that means, like reinvesting in marketing, and if you have seen, or maybe even how you measure returns on that as a part of that investment.
We're still working on the return side of it, so it's just a gut kind of check to know that that was smart. We obviously had been doing marketing since day one, but it was kind of a hodgepodge between some outside help, and then 4 to 5 different roles within the brewery, and it was just kind of this. Well, my primary job is taproom manager, but then I'm also going to do some stuff on social media to help the brewery just do what they need to do in terms of posts and responding to customers and all that sort of good stuff. Kind of fall last year, we took our sales and marketing director and basically lopped off sales for him so he could just focus on marketing. Super creative cat, was able to kind of get into the flow of everything that was going on, kind of roll it all up underneath him, really define some process to things, deepen the relationship with some outside vendors, and take on new strategies and new directions for social media. Just putting somebody in charge of it, and that's such a big component of being successful in any sort of core strategy. Who's in charge? How many other things do they got to do? We were never going to get marketing off the ground the way that we really honestly needed to be without just putting somebody in charge of that role. And so again, that happened in the fall last year. He had 6 months under his belt when COVID hit, and we were really able to pivot pretty quick. If we hadn't done that before, we'd probably be scrambling quite a bit, trying to do all the things that we ended up doing.
You, like a bunch of other breweries out there, when the COVID really hit and things shut down, there was kind of a mad dash for trying to do some different virtual things and experiences, and keeping customers involved in the process, involved with you, still reaching out to them. And they all seem like pretty good ideas to me. And I'm just kind of curious how your virtual events went, and do you think that was just a blip, like one-time thing as we were locked down, or is there something to be gleaned from that you think might carry on past where we are now?
Quite candidly, we're still trying to figure that out. What's the viability of this kind of program going forward? Definitely on the onset, it was hugely successful with a lot of attendees, a lot of interest, a lot of just really great connection between our brewery and our fan base. It's definitely dropped off kind of significantly to a point where we don't really have anything on the docket anytime soon. And I do think it was a little bit of that, everybody's locked down. The hell are you going to do? You can't leave your house, depending on your state and the order. Sometimes you can go to the brewery to pick up a case of beer or whatever. I think that kind of added to that initial splash of interest and everybody just looking for some sign of connection and some element of fun. But now that we're kind of doing a staged reopen thing or a hybrid reopening, I think people are out and about a little bit more and are satiating themselves in other ways. So not sure. I'm not sure if we'll really continue to put a whole lot of time and energy into that unless there is a particular subject or individuals that we really want to bring together for a very special reason.
There are articles and things on, will craft beer survive? And I feel like this is the 10th time there's been a call for like craft breweries are going to go away type of thing since I've been running the website. But this time there is definitely something to it where so much of the growth has been taproom driven in the last few years. And now that's obviously severely taking a hit. Do you think this moment will fundamentally alter craft beer business?
And I think, unfortunately, a lot of that, and again, no answers, but definitely some perspective. But I do think that this environment has really created an atmosphere where the government in whatever they choose to do is really significantly affecting the economy in businesses, particularly anything along the lines of hospitality. So anything from a hotel all the way to a tap room and everything in between. Obviously, significantly, bars and restaurants are just in the worst position than they've probably ever experienced. When the hell has anything along these lines ever happened? And at what point does the government just kind of survey the scene and go, what else can we do? How much more pain can we inflict? Obviously, everybody needs to be safe. COVID has really hurt a lot of our staff personally, being sick or not being sick, any of our staff, but family members that sick or passed. Like, not good. This is a very, very shitty situation, absolutely unprecedented, and I don't see it improving anytime soon. I think we haven't even begun to feel the fallout effects of the shutdown back in March. And I think the other thing that's happening too is I think just with the stimulus packages and all the things that local states and then the federal government is trying to do and everything else, it's not picking winners and losers, but it's certainly the winners are winning and the losers are just really trying to find some way to get back and to turn the ship around. And by losers, I don't mean that they were just doing shitty before and they deserve to be shut down or anything like that. I'm talking access to capital, what kind of scale, did they just open, and they don't have a name to stand behind. And there's a lot of people out there like that, businesses that opened up the day that the state of Colorado shut business down. Right. And, I don't know if you did not have, again, the division of winners and losers, if you did not already have that momentum, that name recognition, that quality process, the stylistic hits, the teamwork to execute, the strategy to kind of have a lot of significant plans in place that are ending up being defensive positions, it's just going to be an uphill battle for several years. And so I'm kind of with you. I never took a macro look at the state of the beer industry and we're like, peak beer, whatever. We kind of hear that all the time. And I think you can look at wineries. I think you can look at other industries where the numbers are even higher. There's differences to be sure, but a lot of people are finding success in this localized neighborhood brewery concept, and some are still finding success on the bigger scale as well. But as we saw in case buys and everything else during the shutdown, a lot of people went back to just big cases of cheap stuff. So, the big guys are really gonna, I think, be in a really prime place to really survey the graveyard of industry and cannibalize it and take their power position even further than they have now. So I think everybody else from the mid-level producers on down are just kind of holding on and just trying to keep their fiefdom intact.
Yeah, because I was really a believer in that, man, craft beer is just going to kind of keep growing, and it's all going to be based off of very tiny neighborhood locations. It's going to be, I was a believer in the growth by taproom philosophy, and how it, and now, not to say there's going to be, some pandemics constantly that are going to ruin that forever, but now it does give me pause to think that, okay, maybe you have to have a nice mix of diversified revenue streams to be ready in any scenario. And I guess that's kind of my last question here is, what going forward, what is the thriving brewery of 2021 or 2022 going to look like to you?
I think they're mostly going to be packaging cans. I really, really do. I think that is a format that is applicable out of your tap room for restaurants and for bars. A lot of them are doing the to-go kind of a thing. Even here in Colorado, you're supposed to be shut down at 10 p.m., but if you have kind of an open container plaza like we do here in Greeley, the bars can stay open. From what I understand, the bars can stay open, and past 10 o'clock, it's just here's to go instead of a draft. And then you just take it outside and go sit in the plaza and, get home safely. But I think that's a flexible format that just gives you some legs and gives you that diversification of revenue streams. You can also pack that up and send it out of state, send it overseas. A lot of the overseas distributors are knocking on our door. We've never done that, but apparently with what's going on in particularly Asia, they're pretty thirsty for American beer right now, and so that could be an element, that could be a play. And it's just a lot easier to ship over quality cans, in my opinion, quality cans, instead of a bunch of one-way kegs or steel shells that you'll never get back or struggle to get back, et cetera, et cetera. But I think to your point, I absolutely agree with you that everybody needs to be thinking of how they can diversify their revenue streams. If you were 100% taproom draft only from day one, you got to do something. You got to do something to just give yourself an out in times like this.
Well, hey, Colin, this was a really great conversation, and I wanted to just thank you for taking the time, and best of luck to you guys out there in Colorado.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.